even though countries were quite similarly hit by the pandemic, the health kind of dimension of it, the education systems responded so differently. Where you did have a lot of frontline capacity, you had a lot of responsibility in classrooms, in schools, where schools were used to actually design their own learning environments, to manage the space, the people, the time, the technology in creative ways. They were very quickly back on their feet. That's what you could see. Whereas where you had this heavy kind of command and control education systems, very hierarchical, that really, really struggled in the pandemic. Because in this moment of crisis, as a school leader, for example, you don't ask yourself, whether people follow your instructions. You ask yourself, how well can my own people collaborate? And that's really what this crisis has shown, where schools had a high degree of professional autonomy and were working in a collaborative culture. They managed really well. Where schools and school leaders and teachers were not looking upwards in the system, but were looking upwards in the system, they were managing quite better. Technology has made a huge difference. Like if you could see a remote learning in China, that was very, very impressive. In 1 month's time, they had over 50 million people learning online in high quality learning environments, because they got the tech industry, they got the teachers, they got everybody on board. Teachers were used. They spent maybe less time to teach than the teacher in Australia or Europe, but they spend a lot more time as researchers, as designers of learning environments. They spend a lot of more time with their students outside the classroom. So they were used to deal with this frontline responsibilities. If you go to the other end of the world, in Bogota, the online learning was well beyond the reach of most families. They didn't have computers. And they suddenly said, well, we don't have computers, but we have actually mobile phones and we have television. So they were very creative, actually, working with the broadband companies to give students free access for education resources, government putting the curriculum on mobile networks, complementing this with a great television program. So you can see in a relatively poor education system like Bogota in Colombia was capable to manage in this crisis because they were flexible. They didn't sort of push everybody in online learning and then see we don't have the resources and infrastructure, but they looked at what infrastructure do we have, how can we use that really, really creatively. In the Nordic countries in Europe, again, a lot of capacity locally. Some of them were very, very good at using digital resources, and that pays off in this crisis. The education systems that really struggled were the kind of heavy industrial kind of old style systems, command and control systems, where chains of command broke down and the education system was in very bad shape.